Hey, good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great Wednesday. Welcome to the Mental Health Warrior with Cliff Ballman and Pacific Tita. How you doing today, Lynn?
Hey, I'm doing good today. I got my cup of coffee here. I know
All
it's already
right.
like 5 p.m. Eastern time, but I need my coffee to get through the rest of the day.
I hear you. I drink coffee every day at this on the show. I'm surprised we never got a coffee company to sponsor us. We need to check that out and see if we can't get somebody to
Yeah,
come in and
I
sponsor us.
have a couple of friends that have like coffee shops, so we need to ask
Yeah,
them.
yeah, we need to have that. Maybe some little snacks to go along with it, with the coffee. That'd be awesome. But
Mm-hmm.
hey, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Mental Health Warrior. We have a great show lined up today. If you saw the little blip I put out there on my social media, I'm going to talk about the instance that was posted with a veteran that text 988, and unfortunately, he didn't get the help that he needed. Something that really hit near and dear to me for the last couple of days has kind of affected me mentally, and I just feel the need to talk about that. Also, I want to talk about some the work that I've been doing with the Brady campaign and the Ad Council on gun control, but it's not what you think. Because my views on gun control is completely different, and I'm trying to help them better message what they're trying to get out there with gun locks and other things, because I think it is important. And I think for people who are responsible gun owners, they get turned off very quickly when they hear the word gun control. And so
Yep.
it's
As soon as
something that
they hear
I
gun control, they're like, "Oh no, we
yeah,
don't want that."
yeah. and
Yeah.
and with their campaign that they did, and I shared links to that, and I can reshare them. I think changing how they message it is important. But hey, listen, if you're listening to tonight's show right now, I want to thank you. Please throw some messages out there, and we'll try to answer them with the show's going on. But if not, we'll hit them up after the show. I always do that. But if you missed today's show, you can always catch it on Reads Across America Radio. They do replay my podcast now, and I'm super excited about that. And they play it on Fridays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 10 p.m. And it's super easy to find. You just download the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, the TuneIn app, and you just search for Wreath. And then Wreath Across America pops up, and then you follow it. And not only can you see my programming, but you can see all the great programming that they have out there. And actually, they're going to be out here in DC during AUSA. So I'm going to try to hook up with them and get on live radio with them. I think October 9th through 11th. So I'm waiting on the schedules there. So that's going to be super fun. It's always a good time. The last time they were out here, they were in the Library of Congress. I did some live shows with them, and it was just a lot of fun. I really appreciate, all the work that Reach Across America Radio does, but also all the things that Reads Across America does with making sure that those wreaths are on those soldiers' tombstones, during the holidays, and that's so very important. If you would like to donate to that, there is a QR code in the upper left-hand corner, the one that says WAA. You can scan that with your phone, and that takes you to a direct link, and you can donate. I will let you know that I'm in the Arlington, Virginia area, so if you do donate a wreath, it does go to the Arlington Cemetery here in DC. But you can log onto their website if you want to donate to your local veteran cemetery there to ensure that they get those wreaths. You can just go out to their website. But with that, before we jump into it, Lynn, do you have anything to share today? How was your day today? Did you have you had a conference last week, right? That you were doing for work?
I did. I had a
Yeah.
conference last week, but I also I just came back from a wedding and I haven't unpacked.
Oh, yeah.
But I go into work about usually once a week because we work from home now, thanks
Mhm.
to COVID. But so yesterday we had a celebration, so we try to celebrate what's going on in the month, and so it was Hispanic Heritage Month, or it is
Mhm.
Hispanic Heritage Month. And it's really strange because it goes like from the middle of September to the middle of October. And so, for Hispanic Heritage Month, we were able to celebrate with food, of course. So we had like
Oh,
arroz
nice.
con candules, which is like beans and rice or peas and
Mhm.
rice, and some plátanos, tres leches cake, some sort of chicken, and and they had cowboy caviar or Texas caviar, which is like a bean and salsa kind of
Yeah. Wow.
dish, which was really delicious. But I'm sitting there and I'm in front of the director of our entire agency. Well, the director for our area
Mhm.
of the agency. And she's looking at my tattoos. She's like, "Well, what does that say?" Well, it says, and I'm explaining to her like most of my tattoos are military tattoos.
Yeah.
And then she sees this tattoo. She goes, "Well, what's IGY6? What does that mean?" And I was like, "Well, it's it's more of solidarity, right? For us
Mhm.
veterans, combat veterans with PTSD, not just combat veterans, but just veterans in general, solidarity with I got your six, I got your back.
Yeah.
Right. And then so I was trying to explain to her the significance of it. And so I was just educating, because a lot of people don't understand about veteran stuff. Well, and then I told her, I was like, yeah, a combat veteran. She goes, combat veteran? What war were you in? And I was like, oh, just this little 20 plus year war called
Oh,
the
yeah.
global war of terrorism.
Right.
Like, it just
Did you
ended.
just miss that?
Yeah. Like, so I was like, yeah, it was Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. And then a light bulb went in her head and she's like,
Yeah.
oh, I forgot about that. Like,
Wow.
so we're getting to that era where it's not really like advertised or on the news where people are forgetting about it now. And they're
Yeah.
just like dismissing, because we're not in a wartime anymore. So,
Yeah. People out of
you
that
know,
way of thinking.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's suicide aware or suicide prevention month too.
Yeah.
So, and I was trying to explain to her, like, this is significance. It's just standing in solidarity with my brothers and sisters
And what
against
does your
suicide.
tattoo say across your chest? I forget, and people won't may
Oh,
not be able to
so
see
it
it.
says sailors never die. And
Yeah.
the whole
Okay.
saying is sailors never die.
Mhm.
We regroup at Davy Jones' locker. And so I have Davy Jones on my hand and it says, "Do you fear death?" And she goes, "Davy Jones, what's that?" And I said,
Oh,
"Well, when
wow.
sailors are lost out to sea or
Yeah.
they drown or something or they're missing in action, they say that they go down to the bottom, but they meet at Davy Jones' ship." And I'm like, "Have you ever watched Pirates of the Caribbean?"
Yeah, what a great show, by
So,
the way.
what's that?
I said, "What a great show, by the way." I
Yeah.
love
Well,
that series. It was just funny.
it's great. I love that movie with Johnny Depp and all that.
Mhm.
So she goes, "Oh, okay, okay. So they work at Davy Jones' Locker." And this lady, she is and I'm not saying this in a negative connotation, but she's a
Sure.
boomer. She's older,
Okay.
so she just was trying to learn, the different things about that. And it had nothing to do with Hispanic Heritage Month, but we were there mingling and able to talk about that stuff. So
Well,
anyway,
and you know what? It's kudos for you for not being offended when she asks you those questions, right? Because some people might get
yeah.
a little offended by that, and then you educated her for a little bit, and so maybe she'll go home and educate herself some
Mhm.
on that. And so kudos. Sometimes when we talk to people who forget that we're veterans or forget that it's sometimes it's very easy to get kind of short with them or kind of blow them off. But you always try to educate people about our community and what we do and what that means. Because I think it is important. I think I have the link up there for my book, The Mental Health Warrior, that talks about the Pentagon and 9/11, and that's now
Mhm.
being taught in history books, and that's kind of
Yes.
slipping from people's minds. And for me to publish that book and write that and go through that and to tell my story and along with some other people's stories, about 9/11 and the Pentagon, this is something that we don't want to forget, and the people and the lives that it affected, and it still affects to this day.
I think a lot of it is out of sight, out of mind, right? And so
Yeah.
if you're not in that community, then you don't know. Like, I don't know what's going on in like the physicist community or just something random. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
Mhm.
if I'm not in that community, I don't know. And so I take the time out to actually explain things from my point of view. And I'm not always like very articulate of what I want to say, but I can have
Yeah.
references or whatnot or send them to a website or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so it's very important if somebody asks questions that you don't get offended, especially when they're like, "Well, what's that mean?" Like, "No, well, I would
Yeah.
here, let me show you. Let me talk to you about it."
Yeah. And so, hey, what's going on with the Irreverent Soldiers, now? I
The
know you talked
Irreverent
about that on
Warriors
last
is
podcast.
great.
The Irreverent Warriors, give us an update.
So we're in the last quarter of the year and we have tons of hikes set up. I know that there's one in Killeen, Texas, there's one in Oceanside, there's one in Huntington Beach, Phoenix, Tucson. There's a night hike in DC at the end of this month, which is gonna be super cool. It's gonna be the first night hike and the first time they've
Oh,
done two
cool. I might have
hikes.
to try to do
You
that. Yeah.
should do it. It's so cool. So, and then there's Fort Walton Beach, there's Tampa. There's like so many going on. If you just go on irreverentwarriors.com, you'll be able to find an event there and you'll find a sign up for that. But it's a great organization, and we bring veterans together with humor and camaraderie to improve mental health and prevent veteran suicide. Super important, especially for suicide prevention.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know, hearing about well, next week I'm up in Boston, doing a book signing for Voices of Veterans for Vietnam veterans up there, and they're not really paying me. They don't have a lot of money, but I'm just taking the time out to drive up there. I think it's important, and anytime that I can do that and share my story and maybe help others, I think it's very important. And it's just what we do, right? It's the little things you do, it's the big things you do. All that we can do is just try to help as many people as we can, and hopefully, we don't get into another story about what I'm going to talk about. So, um, Lynn, if you don't mind in the chat, can you share the link to the story? So I did post it on my social
Sure.
media, the military.com one that I'm getting ready to talk about. And so if you guys haven't been watching my post today, and I talked about on my mental health minute, I didn't do a mental health minute today. I just wasn't mentally there, and so I didn't do one today, and I apologize for that. But I was up till about 2 o'clock this morning. I haven't really slept the last couple of days. But in this article that she sent out, and if you hadn't a chance, please take a time to read it and please share it. I think we need to raise awareness about it because it's a failure on different levels, and the sad thing about it is that this veteran was in crisis, and he had prior issues with suicide ideations and things, and he texts to the 988 number,
Mm-hmm.
and the person who received it never responded back and didn't receive help, and then 20 minutes later the veteran completed suicide. Okay, so why does that bother
Terrible.
Cliff Ballman?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you guys all know that I'm a suicide survivor. And when I was at that moment in my brother's house, I looked for my brother's gun, and I didn't never talk about that. Talked about that in the ad council in the Brady campaign about gun control. I never talked about that part of the story. But I was in that bad moment, and at that moment where I was in crisis, and I didn't ask for help. I mean, if my brother wouldn't got that funny feeling at work, I wouldn't be sitting here. And
Yeah.
this veteran did something that I wasn't brave enough to do and reach out to get help. And he didn't receive it. And then when you start reading, why and what happened, and it's a systematic failure of the VA, I think, and how they were handling now, caveat to that. 988 is a new thing. It just come out, and I'm sure there's a lot of growing pains, but when you read that article, it just really upset me.
Well, I think the idea of 988 is a great idea, right?
Mhm.
But it's the individual who's behind that texting or behind that phone number. Like, how well are they actually trained, and do they actually care? Because from what I read from the article, that this person just ended the chat without making
Mhm.
sure that the plan was put into place or whatnot. Like, it's just, if somebody's reaching out to you, it's already hard for that
Yeah,
person. They're already swallowing their pride. Now they're reaching out to you, and you end the chat without verifying that these
yeah,
steps that you told this person to do has been taken. And like, no, nobody was called, no first responders were called, they
yeah,
just clicked ended. Like, I want to know, like, was it an accident? Like, sometimes you click on your phone, you're like, oh, my bad, I
yeah.
accidentally clicked that. But there could be a human error, or was this person actually trained for this, or do they actually care?
Well, and then when you read into that too, when you have to enter your email address to read the whole article. But when
Mm-hmm.
you read into it and you look at the IG report, you find out that the VA had contracted this out. They
Mm-hmm.
wasn't following up with the contractor, making sure they were doing proper training with the people the contractor hired. And just like you said, Lynn, this lady here, and I think it was a woman that responded. She didn't follow up. She just said follow your safe care plan or whatever. Didn't call first responders, and I think this is what messes with me so much. That was the sign the guy needed
Mm-hmm.
to follow through with it.
Yeah.
I mean, that at that moment, if they just would have responded in a different way,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
that
Mm-hmm.
person would still be here, you know? And so what the point of all this is that I hope that we raise enough awareness that the VA will go out there and look at those. I was a contracting officer for a long time. You can verify training to make sure these people are getting trained and doing the things they're supposed to be doing, because it's not right. It's not fair to them if they don't receive the right training, right? And it's
Mhm.
hard to be on that end, right? A good friend of mine who's a licensed clinical social worker, she used to do that work, and it was just too much for her, and she had to, this was before she came to LCSW, but then she had to step back and stop doing that. And
Right.
so, where was the failures at? And what I want to know is what are they doing to fix it?
Right. Exactly.
You know,
That's
'cause-
just so tragic what happened, and I think that's why a lot of times it's important to have people in your corner. Or,
Mhm.
like, knowing groups, like I mean, like, Irreverent Warriors,
Yeah.
right? It says we're not a crisis response group. Even Veteran Trash Talk, we're not a crisis response group, but
Mm-mm.
you can reach out to fellow veterans, and they will not relent. They are relentless.
Oh
Like,
yeah. Oh
they
yeah.
will
Yeah. We
bother
are.
you, like, "Is so and so okay? Did somebody
Mhm.
check on so and so? What is the police number over there?"
Yeah.
Like, people,
Mhm.
like, super care, like and that's the power of the internet. Like,
Yeah.
strangers you've never met before are out there, and they actually care for your life, like, your
Oh, I
presence
I do
matters,
that,
you know?
I've reached out to strangers on my social media because they did a weird post or they
Mhm.
asked a weird question or something, and I take the time because you never know, right? You always get the people out there that are just doing stupid crap, but then you get the people out there who are just, trying to get help, and I share links to them, and if they say they're a veteran, I invite them to VTT and
Right.
other stuff because, here's the thing. If you are that person or that veteran and you're in that moment and you text 888 and you don't get a response, don't take that as a sign. That's not a sign.
Mhm.
Go to
Yeah.
your safety care plan if you have one, or call a friend, or reach out to somebody. Text 741-741. That's another
Mhm.
number you can text. Text home. That was on my T-shirt last year. And then try to get help, but don't take that as a sign. Is that's just the universe telling you need to end your life, because that's not the truth. That's not true.
Right.
It's just a mistake, and the mistakes happen.
Well, like, okay, so like I say, our groups like Veteran Trash Talk and Irreverent Warriors, we're not a mental health crisis response group, but 988 and 741-741, they are. They
Hmm.
are professionally trained in that, as they should be, right?
And you hope
And
they are.
so they need to take
Yeah,
accountability, and they need to be, um, let us know, like, let us know what you're actually doing, your training and
yeah.
stuff to prevent this from happening again. So,
Well, and that's one reason I wanted to raise awareness to it today is because the more people talk about it, the more they share it on social media, the more pressure gets put on, VA, the more senators and congressmen will look at it because it becomes a hot button topic, and veteran suicide is something that is just crazy. But mental health all across the world, not just the United States, all across the world is just something that is just kind of got out of control since COVID. And I think that it's just important to use social media for good. And so
right.
I hope
Mhm.
everybody shares that. I hope they start conversations in the comments to get updates on it, and just keep pushing it, so they're forced to make that change.
I do wanna point out one thing in the article on the military.com article is that, instead of saying 22 a day, they have said with an estimated 17 veterans dying each day by suicide, the VA has made suicide prevention a top priority. So, I mean, have we accomplished lowering the 22? I'd like to see where they got that statistic from,
Yeah, and that's
'cause
something
it
I
does
didn't
say
find out because I
17
was I
now.
was surprised. But I mean, I'd be happy if it had
Mhm.
dropped to
That's
17 a day.
awesome, yeah.
I think that um I think that number is actually higher. I never believed the
I think so
22 a
too.
day, just to be honest with you. I think they counted deaths as something else. I think sometimes when you look at the investigations and things, but who knows? But one is too many,
Right,
and that was a great, to point out that it should be their priority. And the sad thing is the funding for the VA keeps getting cut. I mean, they're pulling doctors out of the VA, which is crazy. And you can go on and do that own research yourself. I'm not going to go into that here, but what they're doing to the VA and how they're starting to gut it quietly to put those people helping other people who's running over the border. I don't agree with that because our veterans, fought for this country. They fought for our freedom. I'm the same way. You're the same way,
Mhm.
Lynn. And so that just irritates me. And this is why what happens when you don't do the right thing.
Yeah. Well, I also want to point out that I haven't seen many reports of that 988 failing. This is the first time I've seen it. I'm sure there's others,
Hmm.
but in the article it says they've had a million calls, texts, and chats. So,
Wow.
I mean, they must be doing something right, and just unfortunate that this one time, it just takes one time for them to
Yeah.
overhaul the system,
Yeah.
which,
Well, and then you look at this guy. I mean, he should have been flagged. He should have had. I guess they if a veteran's a repeat caller or something like that, um, they put a little flag on your phone number or whatever, so then they know to give you extra care because you had. I know that if I walk into a clinic right now and I tell them I'm a suicide survivor, they jump because they know you're more apt to attempt again. I know I won't, just because I know myself. I won't go down that road again. But I'm more educated now than what I was back then. And my
right.
life's different than what it was back then. But yeah, I mean, because a lot of people are more predisposed to attempt again. So
Yeah, someone just doorbelled at my door.
do
Um,
what?
I said someone just doorbelled at my door, but I
Oh,
just wanted to say that it took me a long time to go get help. It took me a long time to
yeah,
go to the VA. I got out of active duty in 2013, and then I didn't start going to the VA till about 2019, 2020, right? And then so that time it was a pandemic, and then um and the VA that I did go to, I wanna say did a tremendous job because they're like, "Do you feel suicidal? Do you feel like hurting yourself? Are you okay?" And I was like, "Well, sometimes I think about it, but I don't do it." Like I
yeah,
was joking about it, our dark humor. And they're like, they stopped everything they were doing and made sure to get me with somebody for therapy right then and there. They're like, "Oh,
yeah,
let me just stop this, hold all my appointments. Let's bring her to this person. Let's make sure she gets the care she
yeah.
needs." And I was like, "Whoa," I
That's
was
awesome.
literally
But that's the way it
joking.
should be.
But I guess they were like, "Well, not everything is a fucking joke. And so we should
Mhm.
take this seriously." So, yeah.
Well,
So I
sometimes
want to say
people will
kudos
say
to
that as a joke.
Oklahoma. Kudos to Oklahoma Veterans Affairs VA Hospital. They did a great job.
I've gone to the Veterans Hospital here in DC a couple of
Mhm.
times. I just don't go to the doctor that often. And the couple of times I went up there, I haven't had any. I didn't have a bad experience. Now I didn't go for therapy. I went for other stuff. Um, but here at the clinic in Woodbridge, here in Dumfries, where I live, the Dumfries Clinic, which is part of Fort Belvoir system, because I'm still in TRICARE Prime. Um, I've had some good counselors and not so good counselors. You run into that. I remember when I was down at Fort Eustis, I was still active duty, and I went in to see therapy. And of course, I was a CW4 at that time, and so I go to check in, and the person at the desk was like, "Hey, do you want to wait in the back room?" And I'm like, "Why would I wait in the back room?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, well,
Mhm.
most senior officers go sit in the back room." I said, "No, I'm fine. I'll sit out here with the enlisted or the younger
Mhm.
soldiers and enlisted. Why would I go hide from them? I'm not embarrassed by it.
Mhm.
And if you get embarrassed by it, if you feel shamed by it, well, that just makes the problem even worse."
Right.
So, but anyway, hey, so we posted the link to the article. Go out there, read it. Throw your comments, what you think about the article. See if you share our own same thoughts and feelings about it. I'm gonna try to shake it
Well,
off.
you
It just
I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
You
No,
were
go ahead.
talking about the red, blue, and Brady. Was it that where you went to
Hmm.
last week? And you're talking
Yeah,
about gun control. Let's switch gears to that.
yeah. I was getting ready to switch to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Uh-huh.
uh, Lenny, I sent you a link. Could you share that
Yeah,
on
I'll
there?
share it
So
right
if
now.
you guys don't know, I worked with the Ad Council and the Brady campaign on safe stories, and it was talking about gun locks for guns. So, caveat: my views on gun control is completely different because the Brady campaign and that organization's a little bit liberal, but I think they're changing their mindset some. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Everybody's got their own views on it. Well, America, you can have your own views. But I think it's important to educate people who aren't gun owners and who scream gun control need to know what responsible gun owners do for their weapons.
Right.
And so I did the article. It's posted. But yesterday I was up in D.C. at the Brady campaign, recording for their podcast, Red, Blue, and Brady, to talk about the PSA for that campaign. And one thing I talk about with them is they preach gun locks, right? You've been to suicide prevention training in the Navy, and they hand out gun locks, and they're like, lock your guns, lock your guns, lock your
Gun
guns.
safety.
Yeah,
Mhm.
gun safety, right? I got
Number
it,
1.
right? But here's the thing: I don't have gun locks on all my guns. Now my guns are
Right.
where my kids can't get them. But here's my point to them: I could care less whether you lock all your guns or not. That's up to you. But what I want you to do is put a gun lock on that one gun you're going to go to. Because I guarantee you, as a gun owner, if anybody's in a bad state of mind, they're going to go to that one gun that they've customized, that they always shoot, that they know will not fail. That's the gun I
Yep.
want you to put a lock on, because I know that's the one you're going. You're not going to go grab your hunting rifle that you use once a year when it's deer season, or your shotgun when it's turkey season or whatever. You're going to go grab that 9 millimeter or that 45 or whatever you have that you customize or you fire all the time. That's the one you're going to go to. That's the one I want you to put a lock on. And I said, and I told him yesterday in the recording, I said, if I do anything, if this campaign does anything, I want it to do that. And it's amazing because they shared some of their stats since the campaign's come out. And it's actually had a positive impact, because me and Tom Cruise was another person that his story's on there. And I didn't serve with Tom, but I knew Tom throughout our military career, because he was on my podcast, and he works with veterans who are incarcerated. But Tom's
Mhm.
story is pretty moving because he attempted death by murder by suicide. So he was going to kill his wife and himself, and his wife actually talked him down. And so he's
Oh,
part of the
wow.
campaign. And he's a bigger part of the campaign than I am.
Are they
But
still married?
yeah, they're still together, and
That's
he does a
crazy.
lot of amazing work. He's got two amazing kids, and
Mhm.
he was on my podcast, and we didn't really talk about that, but we talked about his work with veterans, because I completely forgot about incarcerated veterans.
Yeah,
And how
there's
they
so
don't
many.
understand how they can still get some benefits. They make sure that they got a plan for when they get out to restart their benefits and things. That's a
Yeah.
whole other world. I didn't and he completely educated me on that.
From my understanding, if you're getting VA benefits and then you get incarcerated, your VA benefits stop, but then when you get out, then they start
Mm.
back again. So that's like from my I have very little understanding, but that's what I know about that.
Yeah, and but you have to file for them. You have to go back and refile for it, and they don't. I
Yeah.
think from what I
Oh,
understand,
really?
yeah. And so that's
Wow.
one thing that he does is he works within the state that he lives in, the prison systems,
Mhm.
to make sure that they do what they need to do. But also he goes in and talks to the veterans inside the prison, because a lot of them are in prison because of PTSD, because of drugs, all those things that round up, and that's how they wind up getting incarcerated. Anyway, went off
Mhm.
on a tangent. So while I'm up there at the ad cancel, and not the ad cancel, the Brady campaign, and we're in the podcast, and they're a very nice podcast room, way better than my little closet that I have here at the house. But, they do really good work. And I think, with the positive impacts that this is having on this PSA they're doing, the campaign for gun locks, I think it changes a lot of people's minds. Because here's the thing, and JJ, the lady who's the producer of the podcast, we talked about this, is when you talk about gun control and you tell people you need to lock up your guns. Well, for responsible gun owners, you into the conversation, because right now you're telling me I'm irresponsible. And the
Mhm.
hell I am responsible for my guns. I do all the things with I grew up with guns. And she says, and I said, right, you lose the argument at that moment.
Yeah. And a lot of times when you think about gun control, it's like, "Oh, you're taking away my guns." Right?
Mm,
But that's not what you're trying to do here. You're trying to say, put a lock
Yeah.
on one of those, the special gun.
Yeah.
And I wanna just talk about, in the South, we have the stand your ground law, right? And so we were
Right.
talking about this yesterday at work about how we all grew up, like, well, I grew up in San Diego, but my dad taught me about guns. But
Mhm.
and most of my life has been in the South, where most of the states are stand your ground, and a lot of people have guns. Like, there's open carry in Texas, and then most places in the South, you don't even need, a license to
Yeah.
conceal carry
Mhm.
anymore.
Yeah.
Like in Florida, they just passed that, so you don't need a license for that, so you can
Yeah.
conceal carry at
Good.
any time. And so the most important thing that we were talking about at work is that the difference between a lot of people that come from the north and the people from the south is people from the north, they're not educated on gun safety. Like, from
Mhm.
the moment that we're able to pick one up, we're taught, okay, check the chamber, make sure it's empty, don't ever point it at something you don't want to kill, for
Right.
hunting or whatever. And so I think gun safety is a huge deal, and that's something that we're just accustomed to here in the South. That a lot of
Yeah.
people in the North are not really accustomed to.
Well, and I think people that grow up in the cities and things who never had
Yeah.
guns and the 2 JJ and I forget the lady that was there, they've never owned a gun. Now, JJ's father was a policeman, so it wasn't like there wasn't around guns. She just personally doesn't have guns. But her view is something different. But when here's what I talked about on the podcast, and when it comes out, I'll be sure and share it. I said before you jump into gun control and before you start dinging law abiding citizens, go get all the legal weapons from all the gangs and all the other people out there
Yeah, right,
first.
exactly.
Then we'll have an intelligent conversation. And I said, secondly, before you open your mouth about an AR or an AK, you better educate yourself on that damn gun because a lot of people run their mouth about it and they never picked that gun up. They never fired it. They never took it apart. They know nothing about it. All they want to do is run their mouth to get talking points.
Yeah, that's a good point, is that law-abiding citizens are gonna follow the law, but you can't control the ones who are not gonna follow the law. Criminals don't
Yeah.
follow the law, so what are you gonna do about that? So that's a good point that you
We
make
don't need
there.
more laws. They just need to enforce the laws we have on the books.
Yeah,
We have
exactly.
the laws with the red flag laws and things like that. And it's amazing how, even with those laws, people are still able to buy guns that shouldn't be getting guns. So there's a breakdown of the system. And so I just feel that
Yeah.
for responsible gun owners and for people out there who do the right thing, and so a lot of Americans do the right
That's
thing.
that's crazy.
They
So
should
in
do
the
it.
comments, Linda Rodriguez, "Hey, girl." She
What's up,
says
Linda?
in Nevada, you have to have a concealed carry license to conceal carry, but you can carry open carry if you don't have one.
Yeah.
So that's kind of backwards. So if I get caught with a gun, I can just be like, "Hey, it's not concealed. I'm good."
Yeah, that just so it's visible and see it so the cops
Yeah.
know, because if you have concealed carry, you go through training, I'm assuming in Nevada, just like other states, it's required training that you go through to make sure you can
Mhm.
operate that weapon. But, here's the thing, they don't talk about this. If you look at the statistics of states that have stand your ground, concealed carry, open carry, whatever,
Mhm.
the crime rates are way down.
Yeah.
And if you take out the gun violence crime in New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago, St. Louis, LA, if you take any of those out, gun violence in America drops below Sweden,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
because you think about it in between it doesn't really happen in a lot of and that's known. When I grew up as a kid in rural Missouri, we used to go out and look at our hunting guns at lunch hour at school. We never had shootings. At school. That would even that thought never even came up. But after Christmas, you come back after Christmas break, everybody's showing off the new rifle that they got,
Yeah.
for Christmas. It was just a thing you did, and we all had gun racks, and we all
Right.
had our guns in the gun rack in the back of our trucks. It was just something we did.
Like the new Red Ryder rifle.
Yeah,
Like on the Christmas
that's
store,
right.
"You'll shoot your eye out, kid." No.
Hey,
But,
yeah,
so Linda Rodriguez just said, "Criminals will find a way to get firearms anyway," which is true. Here in Florida, if there's a break-in, like somebody breaks into your car or breaks into your house, the first question the cops ask is, "Did you have guns in the house, and did they take it?"
yeah.
So, that's one of the first questions that is asked, so that is so true.
Yeah, and it's important too that if you inherited guns or you have guns, that you write down those serial numbers and that you have a record
Right.
of that gun because a for insurance purposes, obviously, But also, if that gun gets stolen or something happens, they can track that serial number, and then they know if it was used in a crime or where it came from. But a lot of them grind the serial. I tell you right now, if I was a criminal, and obviously I'm not, I could call right. I could call. I got people in Missouri I could call, or people I know, and get any type of gun I want to get. Now it's going to
Yeah.
be legally,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm just saying, if I was a criminal, they know the same people.
Mhm.
They make ghost guns. So it just they need to enforce the laws we have on the books. And I
Yep,
think more
I agree.
importantly, to go back to the whole point of this whole conversation. Oh yeah, no, by the way, Linda said on my Facebook that she's got some pretty good stories about bad dates and stuff. So we're gonna have to have her on
Oh, we
sometime to
gotta
talk
get her
about.
on. I got some
Yeah,
friends here
I
who
know,
have
I
bad
know they're
dates
gonna be
stories.
pretty good ones too. um, but it just goes back to what I say. We were and Tom was on the Zoom meeting yesterday, and
Oh,
he
man.
was talking about, and he told him, he says, "Look, what you guys don't understand if you don't have guns, is a lot of these veterans and other people who have guns, they spend a lot of time customizing this gun, and certain guns it takes years to get the permits to have them,
Mhm.
to all this other things. They do all these things, and then you're going to tell me that I did something wrong and I need to take your gun away?" I
Yeah.
said, it's just idiotic. And then I chimed in again saying, that's the one you want to put a gun lock on.
Yeah.
It's just with Suicide Prevention Month and everything else going on. Of course, a lot of hunting seasons coming up and everything, but it's just important, and it's important to also, another thing that we talked about, and I'm going to get onto this another program is, when you have PTSD and you have triggers, it's important to let your family know and talk to your family about that, right? So they
Mhm.
want to know, if you have kids, especially, oh, well, why is daddy upset, or why is mommy upset, or whatever, and especially with my kids, they all know about my triggers, and I think sometimes as
Right.
parents, and my youngest is 9, just turned 9. They think their kids are too young to understand that, but they have the capacity to
No,
understand it.
they can. And
And
I'd like to caveat with that too, though, is that, yeah, you should tell your family and talk to them about it, but you should also don't expect them to understand every single thing, or don't
right,
expect them to exactly empathize with you,
yeah,
because sometimes they can't.
yeah,
And sometimes all they can do is just listen. And so a lot of people get into arguments, domestic arguments
yeah,
about that, because, oh, my partner doesn't know where I'm coming from. Well, it's not they don't really have to, as long as they respect it.
yeah,
They respect it and they understand, like, okay, this is a trigger for them,
yeah.
and so
And I think
it's
it helps
important to
too
be
with
self-aware.
yeah, I think so, and I think, if
Mhm,
your children understand those triggers, and you have that conversation, and I've told this story before, and Tom talked about it yesterday, is that, it makes your children more aware when they're at school and other things are going on. Lloyd
mhm.
had that incident, last year where one of his classmates said he was gonna, take his life, he didn't wanna live no more. He told Lloyd this on the playground.
Wow.
And I've had many conversations with Lloyd that you take that seriously.
Yeah.
And he went and told his teacher and explained everything to teacher, and there was a longer conversation than that.
Mhm.
And then the teacher went and told the principal, and of course they called the kids' parents in and stuff. But the principal, when she brought Lloyd into the office and talked to him about it, he wasn't in trouble, just find out what's going on. She didn't know anything about me. She was new to the school, so she didn't know my story or anything like that. And she's like, I have never seen an 8-year-old be so articulate, and how he explained the situation and the caring that he had to make sure his friend was going to be okay. And then I told her, of course, I told her I'm a suicide survivor. I speak about it, I do all these things. And then she kind of understood.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
but I think it's
That's
also
great.
important that, you know, also, because kids go through so much nowadays. And
Mhm.
I don't think it's any different than what we went through, but it just, a lot more people see it because of social media.
Well, my daughter's
Um,
10, and since she was, like, 3 or 4, she knew that if I'm screaming in my sleep, having those night terrors or nightmares, like, even during the day if I'm taking a nap, she knows to, like, shake me to wake me up, because then I won't stop screaming unless I'm shook and awake up, and that's kinda messed up that my daughter
yeah.
knows that, "Okay, mommy's having an episode. Let's wake her up."
But
Not,
but also I think the caveat to that is it
Mhm.
makes your daughter feel proud that she can go and help mommy,
Yeah. Mhm.
that she can, do that, for mommy. And it's you educate kids, say, "Hey, dad just needs 5 seconds to go cool off or go to this quiet place or whatever, and you tell your wife, they don't, like you said, they're not going to empathize, they're not going to understand the situation fully because it was only for you, and everybody
Mhm.
takes situations different. You and I, Lynn, could go through the same situation, it could affect us completely different. And that's okay. I just wanted to say that just talk to them about it and
Yeah,
just have that
I
honest
agree.
conversation, because a, it's going to help your children out, and b, it's going to help your family situation. And even if you don't have children, talk to your family about it. Talk to your brothers, your sisters, talk to, we have a big family text, right? And they text about everything. And I got a
Mhm.
move coming on. I got movers coming tomorrow because I'm getting ready to go to Italy. And it was just too much. And I just left the conversation. But then of course, then they panicked, right? And then of course my older brother calls me, and I said, look, it was just too much. I couldn't handle it. I just, my phone was going off at all hours of the night, and I needed to be out of that. From, it's not that I'm mad at him or upset with him. And so I just told BJ, I said, well, I just needed a break from it, not a break from the family, a break from the constant family texting. So, but anyway, hey, we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for joining in. I hope you go out and read the two articles that we have. Please put comments out there. Once again, if you missed this podcast, or if you want to rewatch it again, you can watch it on Aries Across America Radio Fridays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 10 p.m. Super easy to find. You just download your favorite radio app, but it's iHeartRadio, Odyssey app, or TuneIn app. You search for Reese Across America Radio. Be sure to go out to veteranstrashtalk.com, to their website. We got all of our great merch out there. I got my t-shirts out there. I got both season 1 and season 2. Veterans Trash Talk, and the green screen throws it off some. And then, of course, on the back, I got the saying that you are a warrior, you are worthy, and you matter. But with that, Lynn, I'm going to throw it over to you for the last words, and then we'll get out of here.
All right, guys. Once again, it is Suicide Prevention Month. So reach out to a
Mhm.
friend because you never know who needs that, or you might need it yourself. And I got your six.
All
IGY
right.
six. So also check out irreverentwarriors.com.
That's right. Everybody, you guys have a great evening. Have a great
All right.
weekend, and take care.
Thanks.